Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. On Teachers' Day, our tribute to all the teachers who shaped and formed us, and our hat tip to all of them who continue to work through 3 very, very difficult months. Teachers have had to readapt to online classes. But what is happening in the education sector? In many ways, education is the new fault line of the coronavirus story, because even as other parts of the country have opened, schools across India have remained closed. Which leads us to a very fundamental question. Should schools be charging differently now that classes are online? School management that we reached out to, and we reached out to many, were not willing to take part in this conversation. One educationist off the record said to me, it's a tricky subject. Others argued that school fees have not been rationalized because teaching and non-teaching staff still has to be paid fully. But parents feel extremely strongly about this. As the economy contracts, remember the GDP is down by 23.9%. Many people have lost their jobs or have had salary cuts, have had incomes reduced, and are asking why should they be paying full fees. So on this program on Mojo Story, a parents forum, a forum of civil society talking about what's happening with their children and their experience interacting with different schools across India. I'll start the story today with Vaibhav. Vaibhav had a very moving story, and I'll just ask everybody, if you'd rather speak in Hindi or a mix of Hindi and English, please feel free to speak in the language you're comfortable in. This is an informal program and we wanted to reach as many people as possible. So Vaibhav wrote to me explaining that he was one of those who actually lost his job because of the slump we're seeing in the economy. His wife is self-employed and he has 2 children in a private school in UP. Now, this is something that hasn't come to light yet. What is happening to those who've lost their job? So Vaibhav, I'll go to you first and I'll ask you कि आप पहले अपनी कहानी बताइए.
See, Barkha, we've got 2 kids, 2 boys going to a private school in UP. One is in class 7 and the younger one is in class 2. The academic session started with March. The schools actually closed in February and have been closed since then itself. The kids haven't gone to school since 20th of February. The session changed. The fee was demanded amidst the lockdown. The session starts somewhere around in March.
Yeah.
The fee demand was raised as per the schedule. The fee demanded was as per the usual norms, and it had a total composite fee structure which was there. And the demands is being raised as per the quarterly basis regularly, and there's been no, I would say there has been no change in the fee structure except for the annual increase which used to be made was not there. Apart from that, schools are completely closed. Kids are not going to the schools.
But online classes are happening.
Online classes are on. Online classes are on. Now, coming on to the online classes, if we talk about it, the online classes have started. Schools' argument is that they are conducting online classes, but they're not realizing that the parents are also bound with those classes itself. I've got 2 kids. Fortunately, I had 2 laptops. I could afford that. I could give my kids those laptops, but that in turn is affecting my daily productivity, which I would have, invested in getting some sources of income generated for myself. The classes are on till 12:30 and 2:30 respectively for both the kids. My total resources are dedicated to those classes.
Can I ask you, you remind us, and I've done a lot of stories on this, of even how difficult it is for every home to have computing devices, and we forget that only 11% of India actually has access to computing devices. Can you share a little bit about what the school fees are that you're paying? And I'm asking you this because you have very candidly and openly shared your economic struggle because of the job loss that you have faced. So what are the school fees that you are paying? Just to have everyone have an idea, your children study in a private school in UP.
The quarterly amount averages to be around 30,000 per kid.
Okay. And can you tell us what sector you used to work in and what happened and what the struggle is, because your wife is also self-employed?
Yeah, I used to work into garment exports. And garment exports has not been doing well. The coronavirus thing was even more killing for the sector itself, with so many cancellations, so many losses coming on to the exporters. They were left with no choice. I mean, people have been talking about paying salary cuts, but that thing hasn't, been there 100%. There have been major job losses in the sector. That's being my story. That
As
being
a
my story. Yeah.
as a father who's lost his job, who's married to someone who's working but is self-employed in a contracted economy, how would you describe, if I asked you to put words to your emotion, you're sounding calm, but how do you feel inside you?
Completely uncertain, keeping my fingers crossed for a miracle to happen to take me through this time.
I can imagine,
Really?
sir. And I just want to say that thank you, because not many people are willing to come forward and talk openly about the economic hardship and the struggle they're going through. So I can only imagine. And I want to open this up now for the rest of the panel. And I'll go to Shubham. Shubham, you wrote me a very passionate email saying a lot of people don't understand the structure of how schools are managed, how school management also needs to spend a lot of money paying staff. And it's a little bit like if other sectors, those of us who are salaried, we expect to still be paid, or we hope to pay our full salaries. So it is with teaching staff. Your mother actually runs a school. Talk a little bit about why you see this differently and what solace we can give, to Weber, who just shared very movingly his story about losing his job and struggling to afford the school fees of his two children.
Yeah, and Barkha, it's a tough time. It's a tough time for everybody, schools included. You look at teachers, and they are in a very similar state as what Weber was articulating. There are challenges with job losses, even in the education sector, and I think teachers are no separate than all the rest of us. However, when I look at schools and the way they're structured, there is a value element to it. So the schools are not just about a transactional acquisition of knowledge or learning 3 into 4 is 12 or the Newton's laws of physics. Not just that, but schools is a lot more than that. Schools about going there, building bonds, having lifelong relationships established, playing soccer, learning teamwork, and all of those other intangible things. So schools today, even though we are not going to schools, our kids are not going there, they are still trying to provide and facilitate some of these things. Teachers are trying to get on board with some of these new forms of education. They are paying their own money to get their internet bandwidth secured, and all of those things. Teachers probably contribute to only 50% of the salary a school ends up paying, but there are other things like maintaining the environments of the school so that once this pandemic is over, kids can go back to school the day it starts again, right?
So what are we not getting? And when I say we, what are parents not getting? I am not a parent, but I intuitively tend to lean, like if I didn't study it in depth, the instinct is to side with the parents, because we know the economic struggle. And of course, I just want to reiterate again and again that we want staff to be fully paid. We want teaching and non-teaching staff to be fully paid. I think what all parents who are writing to me are asking is, why are we paying residential fees, hostel fees? Why are we paying the affiliated costs of activities that are not taking place? I think that's what parents are objecting to.
Right, and there is an opportunity to lower some parts of the cost, right?
Yeah.
Those tend to be a fraction of what your fees are used for. As far as I understand, Barkha, electricity or transportation or discretionary costs like that have gone down. They are cited as one of the big reasons why schools should lower the fees, and they contribute to less than 5% of the overall expense of the school. So the 95% of the expense, which is salaries, which is infrastructure costs, those are still there. And yes, the schools can let the leases go, but then once the pandemic gets over, it'll be very hard for us to restart quickly enough. So schools need to continue investing in maintaining infrastructure, cutting the grass.
So you're arguing, Shubham, that schools are taking this cost from parents to keep the schools ready for a post-pandemic normalcy. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, but the problem is that many people are not living, as we saw with Weber, post-pandemic economics, right? And while we are still the privileged, relatively elite, I have gone into villages of India where villagers are taking karza, debt, to pay, let's say, 500 rupees to rural private schools per month, without any source of income. I now want to get Sulacha Prasad in. Sulacha Prasad represents the Mayo Parents Forum. So even at some of our most prestigious schools, this battle is on. But Sulacha, let me turn around and ask you this.
Yes, dear.
Schools would say parents who can afford this, why are they cribbing? It's different if you have a Webber who's lost his job. But many people are elite, are privileged and can afford this. So what's the problem?
Barkha, this pandemic has affected not only the middle or the lower strata. It has also affected the elite class. Business loss is at every stage, every sector. None of the sector we can say is non-affected at right now. Even in a prestigious school like Mayo, where the parents are mostly from the elite class, these class people have also lost business. They are not saying that we are not paying fees. They are saying because Mayo is not giving the breakup of the fees. It's not ready to disclose what is the tuition cost, what is non-academic cost.
Okay.
They have just clubbed it and made it one. They have informed us that this year they had done 18% increment. In this pandemic, they have informed us that we have done 18% increment. We are taking it back, giving you 10% rebate. That amounts to 8% increase after that also. Without a breakup. Parents here, we all are saying, you give us a breakup of all. Kids are at home, 19th of March. School broke up in the morning. They had cleared a situation wherein they asked their parents to take their watch home. 20th of March, kids are at home. In fact, 19th evening, most of the kids were at home.
So are you saying, sorry ma'am, I just want to understand. You're saying it's the non-transparency that bothers you. What you want to understand is what you're paying for. And are you saying that the school fees have actually been increased instead of decreased?
Dear.
And at what point did these fees get increased, ma'am?
Mail has came to the parents on 20th of July this year. After this lockdown was over and the phase of unlock was started. We got all of a sudden you get a mail wherein the school says we have increased the fees 18%. Now we are giving you 10% rebate, but that amounts to 8% increase from the previous year fees. And we are not going to give you any breakup, but you have to pay the complete fees till the month of December this year. And till December when the schools are closed right now. From 20th of March, they are not incurring any cost on our kids. We were paying for boarding, lodging, messing, and
you are saying you have not been given a breakup of what's going on?
Not till now. Mayo is not ready to disclose it. Mayo is not ready to take it back. It is saying pay the fees right now, despite there is a notification by Rajasthan State Education Department wherein they are very clear that no school is to raise fees till the time they reopen. Here, the schools are not reopening soon for sure. None of the parents will be comfortable sending the kids wards to the residential school in this pandemic. But school management.
So I understand the argument from schools that there are activities at the cost of which have to be maintained. You have to maintain your sporting grounds, for example. You have to maintain your hostels. We get that, but the non-transparency also is a point that many parents are driving home. Varuna Malia, can I ask you to share your experience? You also wrote a very heartfelt note to us. Please go ahead and tell our audience what you're going through.
So I have a different story to share. My daughter goes to one of the very prestigious schools in Delhi, and we are just being charged the fees on a monthly basis. And what we've been asked to pay is just the tuition fees, and there has been no increment since the pandemic started. So I feel that the tuition fees which the school is asking us to pay is fully justified, because I feel the teachers are putting in a lot of effort with these online classes, right? And as everyone said, the school even has to go ahead and pay the non-teaching staff, and they have to prep up. Like once the schools start opening, they have to sanitize the schools. They have a lot of precautions to take. So all that requires money. So charging us just the tuition fees, which is around 7,000 rupees a month, which is even charged on a monthly basis by these schools, is totally justified. That is what my version is.
So Varuna, you're actually saying that you've had a good experience. Your school is not charging anything but the tuition fees. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes, just the tuition fees. That once every month.
Do you want to name the school? Since you're paying a school a compliment, you may as well name the school.
Yeah, my daughter goes to Springdale School, so we're very happy with the attitude.
Okay,
Barkha,
that's nice to hear. And Sulacha's wanting to come in. Sulacha, please go ahead. This is an
Barkha,
interesting example that you have a school that has voluntarily come forward and said,
yes.
we'll only charge tuition. Sulacha, please go ahead.
Barkha, tuition fees is a thing that even Mayo parents are ready to pay. We are saying you give a breakup. The time that kids were not there in the school, you give a rebate for that. You give us the breakup of what is tuition fees, what are the non-academic residential costs and all. We are saying you take the tuition fees till December because you are providing an online class and you have to maintain your staff. That we do admit. But the facilities that are not being used right now, that is the missing, the boarding, lodging, everything, at least give a rebate for that. Mayo is not ready for that. It is saying only 10% includes all other extra charge that include activities cost also.
Okay. Okay,
Sports and
Varuna.
all.
Okay, got that, Sulacha. Varuna, can I ask you to elaborate on what has been waived and for how long? Because Shubham made the point about how schools have to maintain a lot of non-teaching dimensions. And Shubham, did you say 50% of costs are salaries? Did I hear that right? About 50%?
My understanding.
So Varuna, what are you not paying for anymore? What are the fees? I mean, I know no one's paying bus fees, but other than bus fees, what are you not paying anymore?
So we are not paying the bus fees. We are not paying the development fees. What we are just paying is the tuition fees. That's it. Tuition fees, that too on monthly basis.
Okay.
Right.
Just one second. I want to ask Vaibhav. Vaibhav, आपकी school में, because you're struggling and you have a very peculiar situation because you don't have an income of your own right now. Are you paying only tuition fees or are you paying full fees?
See, as Sulacha also mentioned about Mayo, the fee structures have been, manipulated very cleverly over a period of years. Earlier, it used to be, a complete structure of fee used to have a separate demarcation for annual charges, activity charges, development charges, and then your sports fee and your lab fee, your transport fee. Ever since there was a change from government regulation and around 2-3 years back, the fee structure was termed as a composite fee. Okay. Now, this composite fee structure does not have any breakup for any parent to check about like how much component is going towards which category of the fee.
So you're saying it's not clear to you what you're paying for. That's what you're saying.
The breakup is not there anymore for anybody to check that how much component is going towards which direction.
Okay, so we have different experiences here. Mayo and Vaibhav's children's school. Would you like to name the school? Would you prefer not to name it?
I would prefer not to do that.
Yeah, because we don't want a backlash for your children. I appreciate that. Dr. Sulacha, 1 minute. Hang on. I just want to get the others who haven't spoken a chance to speak. Dilip and Chirag. Dilip, please go ahead. Tell us your story.
Yeah, so my son goes to one of the elitist international school in central Bombay. And, the issue, one is obviously about fee because they are charging a bomb. But the bigger issue is they have stopped or closed all the doors for parents to communicate. So there was this PTA, which are supposed to be our spokesperson to deal with school. So they came for one discussion and then I think something happened with the trustee. They said, we are not going to help you. 500 of the 1,000 parents got together, wrote many mails to the school. So school said, okay, we don't recognize this 500 group because this is not a formal association. You write to us individually. We wrote to them individually. Then they said, we can't do anything much except doing an EMI. So basically they have closed all the doors for us to communicate or for us to speak anything. They're not listening. And in international schools where cost is like, I won't even mention or else I'll be called a fool.
No, but give us a sense. Because
it's like almost 5 lakhs an annum.
5 lakhs an annum.
And there are 4 big components. One is the facility, which is the ACs and the swimming pools and stuff like that. One is academic. One is non-academic, which is all the events and programs and hands-on learning. And the fourth part is their margins of profit. Right. Now, when things have been so bad, obviously we are not using the facility. We are not using the non-academic thing. And the profit margin, they can reduce a bit. So doing a 50% reduction on this is definitely doable, more so because the online medium is equal for everyone now. There is no differentiating terms of valuation.
What is the school's, Dilip, what has the school said when you have brought this up? You've said they refused to recognize the parents' forum. When you have individually, or you must have written letters, you must have written emails, what has the school management said?
So I think most of these schools have got together and the only thing they are saying is the best we can do is give you an EMI option.
Wow.
And the good part is the investors of such schools are like big boys like Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who are also big philanthropists. And then during such time when these people can't come forward and tell their investing company to help the community, I don't know what is all this whole story about community and well-being of the country.
Actually, you make a very important point that it would be easy to reduce this debate into, don't you want our teachers to be paid? So I'm just going to say again and again on Teachers' Day, we want our teaching and non-teaching staff to be paid. We want our principals to be paid. We want our schools to be well maintained. But it is important to remember that private education is often owned and controlled and run and managed by big business houses. So they are not necessarily strapped for funds. I just want to put that thought out there and get thoughts on that. Chirag, let me bring you in and then I'll take another round of
Hi, Barkha. So
Hi.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's pleasure talking to you. And second is, on this Teachers' Day, I would like to thank all the teachers. And we know the importance of the teacher and the value which they have provided to the society as a whole. So the discussion, I think, is not about the teachers. It's about the system. It's about the people. It's about the management who are selling this education, right? They are at fault, I think, because see, these are pandemic times, unprecedented times, right? We never ever asked for a discount ever before in our whole career, right?
Yes.
So parenting. But this time, since we know that all across India, the salaries have been cut and we have to manage our households in that particular salaries and all. So we just asked and we approached our schools to give us some discount. And Barkha,
have you had to deal with the salary? Have you had to deal with the salary?
So I run my own business, Barkha, and I know that there are cost reductions, right?
Has your income taken a hit, sir?
Yeah, obviously my revenue got hit, and we provided discounts to my clients because we knew that they are facing the challenging times, right? Community, we have to be inclusive rather than taking these times, challenging times, to fill our pocket. I mean, that we didn't expect from schools, right? Education.
How did the school respond? How did Chirag, your kids?
So in my case, no. So school said you have two options: either pay the full fees, or you go, or you can take the admission off. That's it.
Wow.
And arm twisting which they did. Yeah. I was expecting this. I was not expecting this from school.
So I just want to say that we reached out to a number of schools because we didn't want this to be a one-sided conversation. But schools are not willing to engage with parents on this conversation. And I think, Shubham, that's the problem. And I want Varuna maybe to add to how her experience has been different. But Shubham, you've heard now a range of opinions. And what do you say to someone who's lost their job, or to another person who's saying that the schools are now saying take in EMI to pay for your kids' fees? I mean, people used to take EMIs to, as you moved up the economic ladder, as you moved from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom, as you moved from a, Maruti to a better car, you took EMI to better your life. You're not supposed to take in EMI to meet the requirements of education. And of course, here we should emphasize that we're talking about private schools, and government school teachers remain unsung in some ways, but most people are not willing to send their children, if they can afford it, to government schools. Shubham, please go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of points there, Barkha. I think schools have to do a much better job of providing transparency around fee structures, explaining to people where the spending is, as well as what the value creation they're doing and why it's justified. And I think schools have not done a very good job. And just listening to evidences from NEO and others, it's just apparent that schools all have to do a better job of that. The second point is, for people who are being affected with this pandemic, right, with job losses or new salaries, absolutely there has to be an accommodation for them. Not just in converting into EMIs, but actual fee reduction where it's possible. And I'm completely in sync with saying where there are business houses profits associated with schools education, they should absolutely do a much better job of cutting them out. I don't think it's the right time for profit making, especially in essential services like education. Having said that, I think there is also a lack of appreciation on our side, from the parents' point of view and the kids' point of view, on what we are getting out of the school, the money we are paying, the 10,000 rupees, for example, that we pay every month to get kids to the school, and the value that 10,000 brings back to our kids is not just about the cost of electricity, but it's a lot more than that. So I think we need to have a better appreciation as parents and as a general public about that. Second, I think we need to also work with the school bodies to figure out how we're going to sustain through this period and come back healthily when the things get better, right? So I think the onus is both on the parents as well as on the school systems, on the teachers, on the administrators of the schools to work together to figure out that there is lack of not this much animosity as I'm hearing. The program and other ways.
So let me ask Dr. Varuna Malia to add to that. You have a happy story on this panel, and you say Springdale's has been good. It's unilaterally without having to be asked. Made this gesture of charging you only for tuition. How is the communication between the management and the parents?
I would say it's excellent. We have WhatsApp groups and the teachers are regularly in touch with the parents. Not just the teacher, the headmistress, the principal. They also make sure that, they are in touch with the parents. They're very accessible by emails and we've never had a problem when it comes to communication. So I'm pretty happy with the way the school's behaving. I'm very happy with I think the amount of fees they are charging is justified because even they are putting in a lot of efforts to let the go on. Seeing the pandemic, it would if we didn't have this online system, the kids would be just sitting at home and they would have lost a year. So just to continue the education, I think the school is putting in a great effort and the tuition fee which they're charging, I feel is completely justified.
So Dilip, what happened when you raised the issue? You said they don't even recognize the PTA. So is there no PTA in your children's school? Can you talk a little bit about that?
There is a PTA, but I think it's like, I would say, fixed PTA, which doesn't listen to parents but does what school management wants. So when we approached the PTA, for namesake, they said, okay, we'll take your cause to the school. Then came back saying, okay, the trustees are saying they have expressed displeasure to such things. Then he said, okay, fine, PTA doesn't want to take our cause. Let us form our own body and do it. So they said, this is an unrecognized body. And only send, individual mails, so divide and rule. And when we did individually, they said, okay, we can't do much. And worst is for pre-primary grades. Now to justify this 5 lakh kind of fee, they are forcing those 5-year, 6-year-old kids to be on gadgets for 4 hours, where I know some kids did the drawing and painting on the screen, and they're getting, digitally toxified for life. We talk about ethics of mind, body, and soul, but a 4-year kid sitting on the screen
what is the alternative to online schooling right now? Because parents are also not willing for schools to open, even if governments were willing to do it. There have been suggestions.
For higher grades, it's okay, but I'm saying for smaller kids, it's criminal to put them before the screen.
I just want to remind our audience again that not everyone has computing devices. I have been into bastis where people do not have internet, or they don't have a phone, or they don't have a laptop. There is a digital divide. Our own Vaibhav on this program spoke movingly about how thankfully he already had 2 laptops. Vaibhav, can I ask you if you had to buy a laptop today? Suppose aapke paas ek hota. You wouldn't have probably been able to afford it right now, right?
No.
Yeah, so it's a struggle. It's a genuine struggle. Sulacha and Chirag, you were wanting to add something? Sulacha,
yeah, so I would add to them.
Chirag, just one second. Chirag, just one second. Let Sulacha take it first and then you can.
Barkha, I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm an advocate. These time the courts were closed.
Yeah.
Income for lawyers were literally closed, right? Yet I had to buy a laptop because online filing or virtual hearing, I cannot do without a laptop. I had to buy a laptop and give it to my son. That was I was not planning to. That was an additional thing on me too. Instead of school is saying the same thing, we have an additional burden too. More than that, I'll tell you a very surprising thing. From 2012 to 13 till date, Mayo has increased its fees by 180%.
Wow.
It has a huge corpus fund. Every school has a corpus fund that is to be used in contingency, that can be used to maintain the non-teaching staff that none of the school is ready to do. They do it for building development, but not for these kind of work. Second thing, every school by law is bound to have a PTA association. Most of the elite schools don't do it. Even Mayo is not doing it. There are parent representatives, but they are nominated by the school, chosen by the school, representing the school for the school, not for the parents. Then every fee rise, I think most of the parents do not know, every fee rise is to be done by a school level fee committee. of which parents are mandatory to be a part of. And that has to be done 6 months prior to the next academic session. Like if the session starts in March, they have to notify it by October or November, the latest, that next year we are going to have this much increase in the fees, so that the parents have an alternative of shifting their kids. Here in Mayo, they did it on 20th of July. That also, even after reduction, they have 8%.
So what has been Mayo's response? Sulacha, what has been Mayo's response?
Mayo, we have been trying to contact, like Dilip said, like Chirag said, they do not recognize individual parents association, though we have Mayo girls and Mayo boys together this time. All of them are together standing. We have sent the mail. The reply is the same thing.
No, but is there a recognized PTA and then a non-recognized PTA? Is that
no, there is no PTA.
At all? At all? Because in Dilip's school, there is a PTA, but he's calling it a rig.
No, here they have parent representative that they nominate on their own.
Okay. Chirag,
so my point was, so Barkha, I see Dr. Malia's case as an exception, because I have been speaking to my friends all over across the country. They are telling the same story. So no school is giving any kind of discount, right? And these challenging times, there is a quote saying, when these are the challenging times, your real character comes, right? I think these institutions are showing their real character right now. We have considering them as Vidya Ka Mandir, but now turn into
Paise Ka Mandir
businesses. And that's what disappoints me as a parent and as a ex-student of any school or any organization, right? So that's my point.
Barkha, the private schools have a logic that they are non-profit making organization. No, it is not so.
So you're saying Vidya Ka Mandir ban gaya Paise Ka Mandir, but at the same time, we have to also say that all of us opt to send our kids to private schools. These schools are running on a for-profit model. We are aware of this when we pay hefty fees. Somewhere we have accepted that these schools are better than state-run schools. Obviously, we have accepted that. The weakness actually in our education system is the absence of a public education system. That's actually the real debate. But right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and we can't approve the system that we know. I need to take last comments now. I'll start with you, Dilip. What do you think should happen at this point? When we were looking at the pandemic, the government in some cities stepped in to cap the fees of private hospitals. But I'm always very worried when governments are given too much power, because later it can be misused. But I'm just putting a thought out there. Do you believe that there should be a capping of school fees? Dilip?
I would think that, if investors and trustees get some empathy of the situation, of the circumstances, listen to the parent, do and communicate what is reasonable, what is doable, what is not. I think parents would be more than happy to listen to them. But if they shut the doors and then hold us ransom, then I think that's criminal. They should listen, they should talk, they should communicate, and I'm sure there's a path to move forward. But shutting the door is something I don't accept.
Yeah, absolutely. Chirag, last thoughts?
So mine is, we do not want any capping on the fees, because these are unprecedented times, and we went to the school for taking the admission, right? It is not approached us. I don't want capping, but in these challenging times, they should have given the cost reduction which they faced in their business. They should have passed it on the parents. That's expected, and it was a temporary relief, Barkha, which we were asking as a parent, right? We had to manage our household in those cut off finances, right? So
So you're saying just a temporary reprieve, we don't want a permanent capping, which is something that happened, Dr. Varuna, with the private hospitals. I think the private hospitals will go back to their rates, but certainly in Mumbai, for example, COVID treatment was capped. Now, do we want a Sarkari directive? Is that a good, healthy precedent, or does that create more problems than it solves? I mean, Chirag is already saying, no, we don't want the government in this space. Varuna?
I feel the schools should also understand, right, that these are trying times for everyone, as everyone said, so schools should also understand that, there are, a couple of families who are not in a position to pay the fees, right? So in that case, I think the schools should just stick to taking the tuition fees. I think no parent has a problem paying just the tuition fees, but fees, the development fees, the PTA association fees, all that can be withheld for a while.
Okay, Sulacha, last thoughts?
Dear, I'll say what the Delhi government has done. And I've seen in Delhi, that's a very good thing. It has capped that a school cannot raise above tuition fees. That was the capping put by government on all the private school. You can take, even it happens in Haryana, Panchkula and all, Punjab and Chandigarh, where the High Court has done, you can take, in Sanavar case also, you can take the tuition fees for sure. That is enough to pay the academic and non-academic staff, but the rest all has to be put on hold. Government needs to have this control at least. I'm not saying about the extent of the fees later on, but these kind of measures
at the moment.
This kind of government intervention is required for sure, because private schools don't listen to it. May also don't listen to it. Then you have to go to the court, get the orders against them, and that's not a pretty lovable situation. But that is what is the only options left.
Varuna, briefly, and then Shubham and Vaibhav can have the last.
I just want to say one thing. We have been paying the tuition fee, till before this pandemic quarterly. Right, but now after the setting of this pandemic, the fee payment has been made monthly. Yes, so that also eases out the situation for a lot of parents.
Okay,
so that could be run.
Got it.
Yeah,
government intervention, would that be necessary?
I think balance is important, and there has to be some sort of a government regulation, but not overly so that it impinges on the functioning of the schools. But I want to make a slightly different point. So I haven't been going out to eat in restaurants. My expenditures at a personal level have significantly gone down over this period of pandemic. I have not asked my employer. I've been one of the lucky ones, not as unfortunate as Vaibhav have been, but I've been one of the lucky ones. But I haven't asked my employer, nor has my employer reduced my salary commensurate with the less expenditure that I'm doing.
But Shubham, you might not be the norm. You might not be the norm. Almost everybody's revenues have gone down, even if you change lifestyle and you say, I won't eat out, I won't, I'll cut back on luxuries.
That's the point I'm making, that, while I'm the lucky one, not everybody is as lucky as I am. So I think there has to be an accommodation made from the schools. There absolutely has to be more transparency, but we as parents also need to understand the value of the tuition fees that we are paying and the continuity of education, the friendship and everything that comes along with it. So those are important points.
I think if we were honest, we'd say teachers are actually co-parents. And I think for a lot of for working parents, schools is the space where you can take a break from your children.
My PT teacher was my relationship guide at some point. So
that's what I'm saying. They're co-parents. Dilip, quickly, I want Vaibhav to have the last
I think the sad state is that teachers are like God, but currently the education system is not being managed or run by teachers, but by business houses. And if it is business, then sometimes they make huge profit, sometimes they make less profit, because we are the customer, and they need to understand that. So they're using the whole, equation of teachers to do the emotional story. But when it comes to money, it's all about business.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. There is that kind of cynicism, probably true. Vaibhav, what are you going to do now? Because you're the one on this program with the toughest set of circumstances, right? You're without an income right now. How are you planning to manage? Okay. I'm really sorry, Vaibhav, but we heard everyone else, but we're not able to hear you. But I want to leave you with the image of Vaibhav. Vaibhav is the person who is struggling in a way that many of our people are, that we don't actually appreciate. Vaibhav has lost his job, his wife is self-employed, she's lost her income, and he is struggling to pay the school fees of his children. If you have a story like this, we're not taking our eye off the story, we've just begun this conversation. If your school is not having this conversation with you, we will put it in the public domain, so we will at least start this conversation in the public domain. I've long been arguing that education is going to be the fault line of this pandemic. Everything may open by the end of this year, but not schools. I have a feeling schools won't open till next year the way we are going. So these are questions we really have to tackle. Vaibhav, apologies to you. I have no idea why we suddenly couldn't hear you. But thank you so much to all the parents. And we hope to have the school representatives on our next conversation. So we'll bring you all back. Thank you very much for sharing your very personal stories with us. Thank you.